Welcome to True House Stories, coming out of New York City. And my name is Lenny Fontana. And today we shift the camera. Or should I say, I get on my Queen Mary and go backwards across the ocean to a wonderful place that we love. And oh God, and for house music history, England has to be one of the best places next to Chicago, New York for, let's put it like this, for developing careers, developing a lifestyle where things may have ended, say, stateside. It kept going on and on. And today, this gentleman, who I know is probably one of the tallest guys in our musical industry, he's got like basketball player height. All right. Um, his dad owned one of the hottest clubs in London, which I'll let him tell you about. I don't even want to mention that yet. But it helped shape a generation. And he became a living legend from it. So, a dream that started as a young kid. Let's say he's about 13, 14, 15, being in the club circuit and then getting the taste and touch of vinyl to take it on to a total career. A career where Cream was born and they would yell his name, Tall Paul, places, and they would say tunes. And he was even named by Red Jerry from Who's Tunes back in the day as Tall Paul. So I went and searched and rang his bell and said, brother man, you got to come on True House and share that story of your rich legacy and your family in music and what it did and changed forever forward. With no further ado, I like to bring up my friend, and now will be yours, the living legend himself, Tall Paul.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you, Lenny. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for agreeing. You're one of our true veterans of the game. You know, when you mentioned Seth Fontaine and, Rampling, Tall Paul, these are names, Trouble, there's that hierarchy, Norman J, Jazzy M.
Yeah.
You're right there. You're there. I mean,
You're mentioning a very heavyweight list you're mentioning there.
Yes. And when you guys get together, you do cane it well, too.
Yeah, we do. All the lingo, Lenny, as well. You've been coming to London a long time now, so I'm
I'm
expecting
sorry if everyone I speak a little
some of
too.
that London lingo.
I got the London English, Puerto Rican, Italian thing going. It's like, but um we're just blessed that you're going strong, and I know it's like for everyone it's decades now that you've been doing this. It's not just, it's not, it may feel like 10 years, but it's decades. And things have changed drastically, as you know, in club music and club scene and the world clubbing as it is, and it usually does change in cycles,
Oh,
but we still see you going good and strong, so bless you on the journey, you
yeah,
know.
I am. You're right. I'm blessed to still have, reason to get out there every weekend and play some music and watch people jump around, have a good time. That's what it's been for me anyway since I was a young teenager.
So I'm going to stop you right there, so let's get right into that. How does music find you as the young kid, Paul Newman?
Well, I remember it first finding me when so my dad had a front room in our old house, and it was really dedicated to music and and his vinyl collection, and it was almost a sort of no-go area, so it had a sort of a mystery to it. It was somewhere we weren't really supposed to go because that's where all his vinyl was, and his deck had the little weights on it, especially made sort of Bang& Olufsen type. I can't remember the name of it, but it was high end and it was high tech for the time. And so we would sneak in there, my brother and I, and go through these records, the latest ones that he had brought home, because he had a partnership in a record shop as well as a sort of news agent, where you buy cigarettes and papers and magazines and stuff, comics. And so these records would be constantly coming into the house. So that was an influence, just going through these records in this room. And so my aunties and uncles at Christmas would buy me singles. And so I'd start my own little collection to be like my dad. And so I guess that's where it started to come from, the wanting to have my own music, my own collection, investigating myself, what was coming through, and getting a style, listening to the charts and taping music. And that was it. It was the fire was lit, and it's been burning away ever since.
But your dad also, of course, you're saying about all this other stuff that he's got going on, but importantly, he's got a really club going on too, which not every kid has a chance to be able to be around with their dad's disco.
Well, that came a bit later, Lenny. So I'm talking. So let's say I'm 8 or 9, buying music and collecting music, and then so my dad progressed into a pub, your typical pub, but it was a very big pub. It had a massive live venue to the right of it as you looked at it. It was called the George Robey in a place called Finsbury Park in North London, right where the Arsenal play, very close to the Arsenal football ground. And so he had that for a couple of years, turned it round. It was derelict when he got hold of it, and then he got some live bands in there, and got the pub back on its feet. And we were doing 3 nights a week, live shows, live bands. We had the Pogues there early, before they were, successful. Very Irish sort of strong community. So there was lots of that sort of folk, Christy Moore type bands. And then he progressed from the pub looking for a new venue, and then Turnmills was found. But Turnmills, when it first was created, was a jazz bar for a lunchtime trade. And there it is. That's the picture. Right. Now, you see where it says Booth's Dry Gin? So that was a distillery distribution. So Booth's would have all the gin delivered to that place. And back in the day, it used to be delivered on horse and cart. So it would be delivered around central London to what they were called gin palaces, because gin became a very popular drink back in the early 1900s, and that's every district would have a distribution centre, and that was a place called Clerkenwell, very near King's Cross, for anyone who knows London. And so he bought that. It was derelict at the time. We had the basement and the sub-basement. And so we had a funky wine bar, something similar to Cheers. Remember Cheers?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
think
sure.
Think of Cheers times 10. It was a bit bigger than that. And we had a very successful lunchtime trade. We had some jazz music. My dad was a big lover of jazz. So we would have a Thursday, Friday, and we had performers, and it was great, and everything was fine. And then in 1987, there was a sort of change in the financial of our currency, the pound, and it sent things a bit haywire, and we lost a lot of our lunchtime trade. It sort of disappeared over about 3 or 4 months, and at the same time, our little Friday night local disco, if you like, they were asking for this house music. We want to hear this house music, and I was into it from listening to it from a friend's, my best mate's brother brought it back from his travels from Ibiza. So we were in the middle of this sort of storm brewing. So we changed our spots, if you like, from a lunchtime venue into a night venue. We extended the premises to have a big dance floor, and then a year later we acquired the first ever music and dance 24-hour license, which it didn't exist before we had it. So our lives changed overnight.
Let
One
me
minute,
ask. Let me
yeah,
ask. Can we break in for a second? How hard was it to get that 24-hour licensing? Because that's not an easy thing when it never existed before.
yeah. Well, it was to do with King's Cross, as I mentioned before, was a pretty rough place to go. Like New York used to be early days, when it had that real edge. There was craziness going on every corner, and so we were back then trying to get our European friends from France and Spain and Amsterdam and Belgium to come over and look at sell London to them. But London, it used to shut at 2 o'clock. There was nothing open past 2. If you wanted to go till 3, you had to go into Westminster, which is Soho, the real centralisation where the nightclubs were. And after that, it was gone. So King's Cross was in the Council of Islington, and they were the in charge of the district where Turnmills was, the club. So from what I can remember, the story was we need to, step up our game to European standards, which are a bit more relaxed. They can drink a bit later, they can dance later. So we were quite strict back then in the UK, and we were given an almost a first of its kind. Let's see how they get on license. It was a test case, if you like, and we were the guinea pigs.
So being the guinea pigs, you set the trend as well. Because when everybody's watching you, you're the first of everyone to come after.
Yeah, well, if the flip side of that, Lenny, was we didn't know what to do with it. There wasn't a blueprint, there wasn't a book that we could reference. Say, right, what's he doing, and what are they doing, and how are they running, what nights work. And so we were sort of treading water, trying to find the right avenue that would work for the club. We had lots of trials and different nights that came and went. And then after about a year, I'd say 9 months, it settled into a bit more of a regular pattern, where we found some nights that worked well for us, and we ran with that.
See, the thing is, everyone, Ministry of Sound wasn't around yet. That's after these guys. This is
Right,
Terminals. Yeah, when you're looking at the clock, 86, 87, 88. The only thing I think you had was Stringfellows, maybe Limelight,
Yeah.
Hippodrome.
Stringies was around, Hippodrome was around, but they had a sort of what we used to call Sharon and Tracy nights, where they were for the shirts and the trousers and the shoes, and playing the slow dance music at the end, so you can get that dance with the lady you've been looking at all night, you've been talking to and buying drinks. So it was a bit more like traditional. And then with the explosion of the acid house, the house music, a lot of the influence was getting into the sort of mainstream clubs. And some of them, they were great spaces. You mentioned the Limelight. I think Ministry was on line 91, I think.
Yeah, that's a little later. Yeah.
And then Hippodrome was doing Camden Palace, which is now Coco's. That was my local, behind Turnmill. So they were doing Monday nights, Wednesday night. They were doing a Monday there, packed. Even Rage. I don't even remember Rage down at Heaven on a Monday night. You couldn't move in there, because it was such an explosion of culture, music. It was almost like you were a member, an instant member of this movement, and it was just the greatest time to be around.
Yeah, because
London.
you actually had this new thing called house music. Pre to that, you had Spandau Ballet, what we would call new wave, punk,
Do you know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I suppose the first, I mean, besides like Human League and Kraftwerk, but I can remember one album in the summer of whatever it was, 84, 85. Do you remember Malcolm McLaren, Duck Rock?
Of course. Sure I do.
Oh man, that album, just, you know, that summer with friends on our BMXs, listen to that, you know, that blew me away, that album, man. You know, a couple of them tracks, it was, you know, Grandmaster Flash.
Or the other one that goes, the Buffalo Girls go to round the outside, round the out. And that was the records everywhere you heard. That was the sound.
Dancing, you know, it was just, yeah, man, this is what the fashion. It was just, you know, I suppose every teenager, you know, has that. But this one just came out of nowhere. It felt and was just what everyone wanted, what every kid would, you know, just wanted a taste of. And, you know, and my love of hip hop and soul grew out of that. And then it progressed into, you know, house music and all that came with it.
So your first professional mixing job, where does that begin for you then? You know, I'm not talking about recording studio, I'm talking about DJing side.
Yeah, DJing, it probably was the club, and it was probably a wedding, a birthday party, you know, because yeah, that's the old studios, CLR studios. Have you got a few of these photos you're gonna drop in?
Mate, so I pulled photos from your catalog. I was pulling. I said I got all. If he's not sending them, I'm fine.
Yeah, well, look, when you said that, I was trying to find some photos, you know, and I'm so disorganized. That is CLR, right? You can see the word CLR on the little mixing desk. So that was in some basement. That was when we were doing our pirate radio station. And you can see that not even Technics, so is that like a Citronic or something? But that was early days, playing music on our own radio station with an aerial up on some tower block in North London, and going live across. I can't tell you how fun that was. How a group of friends coming together from all walks of life, joined together through a love of music that we can't hear anywhere else, and we're playing it. We're the DJs, we're the entertainers. People phoning up the studio, where, you know, having a mobile phone back then was a big deal, and someone had access to one, and we were connecting with people over the airways. Oh man, it was addictive. It was just, so I dedicated a lot of time to that. At the same time, practicing at the club at Turnmills, you know, because we had a set of decks, and then we got the Holy Grail one day. I can remember the day. It was like being delivered, I don't know, your first Ferrari or Rolls Royce. In came the Technics 1200s, and just, you know, wow. So I was on them straight away. Yeah, that's a bit after, but yeah. Look at the hairstyle. But yeah, on the vinyl,
a bit gingerly there.
A bit ginger, strawberry blonde, we call that. And then yeah, so it was sort of going, you know, in parallel. So anyway, back to the first gig. It was probably a birthday party where the DJ they had booked or said they had booked, couldn't make it, and my dad would have said, "Oh, I can get a DJ, no problem. Paul, get down there, get your records, and you know, throw me at the deep end and play a load of music that I wasn't really into, but you know, it certainly, you earn your stripes, as you say, when you're doing shows like that, and you're thinking on your feet, and you know, and you're playing vinyl, and you're not playing 12-inch 7-8 minute mixes. You're doing 3-minute songs, and you've got to listen to what, you know, they want to hear, and the requests and drinks and talking and getting organized. So yeah, you became a multitasker pretty much overnight, and you learn how to keep a crowd interested, and what to look for, what not to look for, and what tracks are working and not. And I suppose you don't even know it, but it's all having an effect that you use the experience later on.
So yeah, because that's the thing, you're cutting your teeth. This is early days. You're cutting your teeth on how to do it all, how to control a night, how to figure out how to make something work when you never had anyone else show you the way.
I often wonder, Lenny, that it's almost like a training of a sixth sense where, you know, you can pick up an energy in a crowd. You know, you can walk into a venue and you can go, this is going to be a night. I know instantly, this is going to be a really good night. I can tell, I can feel it. Or, you know, or this is going to be, we're having to work it. These guys, this crowd's going to need some bit of extra care. We're going to work. And then you start thinking in your head, right, this tune, I think we're going to start with that. We're going to take it there just in case that might not work. You know, to the point now, you know, I can pick it up. You know, I can feel that venue. I can feel the vibe. And I suppose the experience started, you know, back then with those parties and weddings and, you know, all sorts of parties that I was chucking.
Paul, did anyone show you and your brother like the actual form of mixing, the real blending, or you guys just picked it up from watching everybody else? What happened there?
Yeah, so, you know, watching the hip hop guys and the scratching and the cutting, it was something that I was interested in, and used to try and do on some of these belt driven, you know, drives on the old decks. And it was just obviously not quite as doable. And as soon as the techniques come, you get the right slip, you know, the slip mat. So yeah, I was on those decks 24/7, trying to emulate the scratch from a Run DMC track or a Grandmaster Flash, you know, cutting it with Blondie. Just and then you know, the style starts to become and then when we got a Newmark mixer, I remember, and it had a little sampler button on the side that you could get a couple of seconds. So then I was getting beats and you could scratch over it and I could get a hip hop. So yeah, you know, just used to lose myself in that little practice in the DJ box in the club.
So let me be clear on this. Let me set this in my, because I kind of get where this is going, I think. At the time, MTV is becoming very popular. Run DMC's on. Public Enemy's out. This is what's happening in that 80s era. And you're seeing the DJs with the 1200s and they're doing the scratching live on TV. Do you guys secretly wanted to be hip hop DJs? Like, was that really what was going on?
I'll tell you what was a big influence. I don't know if you remember the DMC Mixing Championships. So they were a company that used to put out every month what they were called DJ friendly mixes, but you had to join this club, and so they were called DMC, DJ Mix Club, and they would have special mixes of records no one else would have except this members club, that you had to be a DJ to join. So you would hear these mixes of, let's say, James Brown, but they would do like a mega mix, and it was really good and it would really work. So, and every year they would do a mixed championships, and it would start. I actually entered in it must have been 89 maybe. So there was a regional heat, there was a local heat that I got through, and I would have a little scratch mixing couple of minutes set out that I practiced to go into this competition, and I was really into that. So I had all the videos and the tapes of these guys mixing and scratching, and these were top of their game, and that was a big thing for me. I really wanted to emulate that. So that was a big influence, and of course the music, the hip hop pre-house, LL Cool J, the Beastie Boys, all that Def Jam early stuff coming from on import over to London. I was all over it. I couldn't get enough of that.
So two things I'm going to say. One, Tony Prince with DMC. Number two, Pump Up the Volume. CJ McIntosh takes a hip hop record and makes it become this dance edited delight.
Number one.
Bingo record that actually starts to make that bridge from the hip hop to a dance beat. Am I wrong or am I right about that time?
Yeah, there was a few there was, I mean, you know, that was our pump up the volume was something that we had heard on the Pirates 6 months before. But it was such a big record and went all the way. It was number one for ages. And then it opened the door. I think Jack Your Body, I think that went top 3, maybe before or probably just after. I don't know if Pump Up the Volume was the very first. Right on Time, you know, Daniel DeVoli's track, Pump Up the Jam, you know, 89, 90 just went.
Yeah,
boom.
well, that's when you're having hip house and hip hop and jacking all fusing and working, right?
Have you got a picture of that Fast Eddie at the club? We had.
No, I don't have Fast Eddie though. I have other pictures. I wish I did. I didn't see that picture.
We had Tyreek Cooper and Fast Eddie came over, and they were doing a tour, you know, with Yo Yo Get Funky when that was out, and somehow we managed to get them on a Thursday, and we had Sunrise FM were promoting it and pushing it. And so I was just like, oh my God, you know, this track, this album, I've got a signed album of it somewhere, of my, of Fast Eddie and Tyree Cooper. And then, what's his name turned up? Silver Bullet turned up and done Bring Forth the Guillotine, which was just about to come out on Tam Tam Records. I could have died and gone to heaven, Lenny, that night. It was just like, oh, thank you, Lord. This is what having a nightclub is all about, these moments, you know. So
let me remind everybody the nightclub. Everybody, look, on Turnmill Street in Finsbury, EC1 area, before it became all gentrified, these guys were breaking records and breaking acts.
Yeah, man, that was.
Well, did your dad have any idea that he was going to be a big part of the house music scene? He probably had coming from Irish pub mentality. Come on, he had no clue.
No, my dad was an open book for music. You know, he loved it. He loved it all and embraced it. And, you know, he was just as excited about this whole thing. But, you know, there's another side to it, Lenny, because it was a business and it was a late night business. And we had obligations for customers, obligations to the police, ambulance, fire service with numbers. You know, so it was a responsibility for him, not so much me, because I was just enjoying all these Groove Rider and Carl Cox and all these DJs that were coming down who were my absolute idols. So I was enjoying that. Then I used to see the stress and some of the, you know, the other side of it.
Can I ask a question? This is important because I asked this to Mr. C because he also had a club too in London.
Right, just up the road, not far.
I played at both your dad's club and his. He had to deal with the hooligan, which we call the soccer, you know, the mafia clubs and payola. Did your dad have that situation being that you were next to Arsenal and having envelopes ready, like in New York with all the gangsters coming for sanitation, police to keep everybody, you know, keep you guys open?
Stefano, special. We were a nightclub in London. There was lots of nightclubs in London, and do you know what's funny, Lenny? There's still a rumor going around that my dad was a policeman, and I don't know where it started, but not just any policeman. What they were called CID, which I suppose would be your equivalent of, you know, specialist team undercover looking for the real bad boys. And because of his, when we got this license, everyone was like, how's he got this? Why, you know, of all the clubs in London, how does this little club in Clerkenwell get this license? So if there was any brown envelopes, the envelopes were going to the licensed people to get the license. And from what I've spoken to family members and old uncles from back in the day, that almost fed the fire of this rumor that he was somehow connected to the police, you know, the special Sweeney squad or whatever, and had loads of connections. So in answer to your question, as far as I was concerned, we weren't stepping on anyone's toes. Everyone was doing okay. Yeah, there was a drug thing, a big drug thing going on, but it was going on everywhere, and we were doing our best to make our customers come in at a safe environment. If someone, and there it is, them old speakers, and if someone got in trouble, we'd have a system to make sure they're okay. As I said, getting back to that responsibility. So I don't know. It just felt like, yeah, of course there were some heavyweight dudes around, but I don't know if we were even on their radar. We were a local club and used to welcome and look after, our local community.
Well,
and then,
the reason why I bring this up is because it's like the same with Ministry of Sound. People knew who was behind it. James Palumbo, which is part of Parliament. Like his family had a big piece. A lot of things that Ministry was doing, they would be, if it was someone else, they'd be closed already.
I suppose the main issue then was your door staff. You had to have good door staff, trustworthy, not ready to start chucking fists immediately. You want diffusers on the front and thick skin diffusers, just going to calm it down, and they're going to get screamed and shouted at and spat at, and they're going to have to, once they're outside, it's not really our problem. So the door was where it had to start, where we had to have some old school people that we knew, trusted, because that's where you would get, the drugs coming in and people trying to get our club on their patch and get them serving up, and so we tried to avoid that all the time. There was door staff coming and going, and there was problems, but I dare say it's what every club goes through. You always get a wannabe, and eventually they just get found out and moved on.
Well, it seemed like, if I remember correctly, in the 90s, there was a few key families that ran those doors, like security families that had in their controls of these clubs. Because, you're like, it's just like everywhere in the world. It's a clicky thing. And like you said, you don't want bone crushers. You want, diffusers. You know what I mean? You don't want bone crushing going on.
We had some, some wannabe, break, and they used to go and just cause more trouble than they were there to stop or to, look after. And we weren't interested in. Some nights would happen where it'd be more aggro than it was worth. But you just don't have it again. And we got a good relationship with the authorities, and every now and then we will get a slap on the wrist for an incident. But once it goes outside, it becomes. I know it's our customers are coming outside, but it's not our problem. The street has to be managed by what we pay our taxes for. So a lot of turn and throwing with certain the police, especially. They don't want to be getting called at 4 a.m. for some incident, some misdemeanor, or someone going into, doing something silly outside someone's house. So, we used to man we used to have security over the road where the houses were, and just try and work with everyone. It was tough. Though, but we're a nightclub.
Yeah, well, that's the key, and that's why not everyone can own a nightclub. How many years did you play before you were able to get out on the road playing at your own spot?
So the club opened, I think it was Christmas 85, 86. And, that's where I was learning my trade, if you like. And then when I was actually asked to play outside of that environment, would have been, had a couple of residencies offered to me, one in Brighton, one in London, and then, of course, Trade, which was actually at the club, but was a night like no one had ever seen. It started at 2:33 in the morning and ran till 9:30 in the morning. No one had seen that, heard about it. Maybe something in New York, possibly, or some, you know, after hours end up type place. But it was for London. It was new. It was legal. Remember, we're coming off the back of a summer the previous year in '88 where the demand was so high for the music and the culture and the being together. The clubs weren't big enough. They weren't doing that. That's Brighton. That's the Zach Club, and that's probably one of my first. That's it there, yeah. That's and it hasn't changed much. I was down there a few months ago. That's called the Zach Club in Brighton, right on the front.
Oh yeah, yep, right on the
Yeah,
water.
you know it. And so that was, yeah. Yes, I started travelling outside of the London bubble and starting to travel and loving it and just couldn't get enough of you know, playing the music that I've been buying all week and yeah.
You see, now you were playing house music, but then I noticed when trade began, the
Yeah.
speed of the dance music was super fast when I went in there.
Yeah. So
You know what I'm saying? Like the music was
well,
changing. Like there was an apartheid going on with dance music at that
well,
time.
yeah, maybe if you'd have walked in the first 2 hours, you would have heard either Malcolm Duffy or Smoking Joe, who were house, you know, proper house. And then, but because Trade used to program it so well, Lawrence and the crew used to own Trade. It would start off housey, and then it would just build and build, and it would go dark, then it would go banging, and then I used to come on at the end and try to bring it back and leave it at a high. And for me, I don't think I've ever come across a night that ran like that, because then the music started to filter and you had to play a certain type, either it was trance or hard house or house. It never seemed to blend as well after, you know, '93. Everyone went off in their own sort of direction. For me, you know, I was playing house music. I used to play hardcore, what was called hardcore, that went into sort of drum and bass, if you like, on the pirate station, because that was great. And I was into house music where I could play it at the club on a Friday night, let's say. And then when trade came along, yeah, at the end I had to sort of play a tougher set because I was following either Trevor or I ended up following Tony DeVitt when he came on, and the club finished at 11, then it finished at 12, and then it went to 1 p.m. And then after that, my dad was like, "Look, we're stopping. We've got to close. We've got staff here, you know, that have been up for 24 hours." And so, yeah, I used to play a different genre for wherever I was doing. So I was buying so much music, and I had it all covered.
See, because you know, I know Smoking Joe playing there. I remember I went there a few times when she played, and I also know how you play. That's why I was saying the way that programming was unreal. Even Pete Tong played, you know,
Yeah,
somewhere in the
yeah.
middle of the night.
Well, so when we started our Friday, the gallery, when Pete would have played and Eric Prydz, Tiesto, you know, all the big dudes, um, we would still program the night. It had to be right. Who was starting the night? We had Lottie, who was fantastic DJ. She is, and she knows what to do at the right time. She could play in the middle, at the start, even at the end. You know, and for us, my brother and I, it was just as important, that warm up DJ, because they set the night. They you know, they create the vibe. They don't go to it. Yeah, that's the DJ box. That's my bro. See, that's the laser controller. That's the that's what we used to use for the laser, and he's actually on the main laser there. Yeah. And so Danny, I would allow to do the laser and the lights because I knew he would know. And we had a guy there called Sandy, who, you know, if you missed a drop, you had to go back to school. You know, because again, the lights and the production for us was really important. They had to be in unison, so you had to know the music. You know, you had to listen and know how these drops work and don't miss one, because it just creates the whole night. So yeah, the programming, I still believe it is so important.
Oh, 1,000%. That's what makes a great experience, not a preset that's made up with some explosions. Everything is already preset. I don't like the way things are going today with that.
You see, yeah, I mean, that's like, you've got 40, heavyweight DJs from around the world all doing their hour, and they've got the tunes and they've got the big drops and they've got the smoke and the canisters, and and that is an experience. It's a bit more peak trough, but it still works, and it's what they've paid to come and see. Our night, we had to look after 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. We had an 8-hour shift to figure out. Everyone done 2 hours, and never before, never under 2. Some that main headline would want to do 3. Fine. Sven Vath, 5. All yours, because this guy, they know what they're doing. They're going to work it, build it, and you're on the floor for 4 or 5 hours, being taken up and down and all over the place. So that was a big deal for our gallery, and we learned that at trade, basically.
And I figured since that you set precedence with your night, and other DJs are coming, other promoters are coming, and that's when they want a piece of what you're doing to pull you out and bring the stars of the night. This is where it gets interesting for everybody, because pre to that, people were moving around, but they wanted that in their night.
Well, this was the sort of almost the build up to what became called the super clubs, where we were 1,500 venue at a push. These venues were starting, the demand was there. Almost like the second wave, it became where, for instance, Nation that used to host Cream every week. I think it must be bordering 3,000 people, and your Gate Crashers, God's Kitchen, Miss Moneypennies, Clockwork Orange. These brands were being born. Just on cue, there is Andy with his lovely little hat on. That's probably
when everybody was quite younger.
Young bucks, young pups.
I say that in a very nice younger, because nobody's old. It's still going.
Young at heart. So the clubs are getting bigger and better and more production, and the DJs were becoming these sort of superstars, and the clubs were following suit, and all through the 90s, that was it was just every bar, club, pub were doing their sort of house music night.
So, of course, you're going from sea to shining sea. When do you step into the recording studio? Because that's a thing that, of course, I know you've seen everybody else was doing it, and Radio 1 playing all the big tunes. You're saying to yourself, I got to get a piece of this. So
when I was doing the pirate stations, a lot of these records were bits of that and bits of this and samples coming together, and I would hear that track would sample that one, and a lot of it was white label. It wasn't, by the time you found out you'd been sampled, it was all over and gone. And if it was really good, they figured out a deal, and everyone got their cut, and it progressed forward. So I was listening to this and being inspired, and I started to put an idea together for 2 tracks. One of them was called Bring the Noise, which was the A side, and the other side was called Love Rush. So when we were doing the pirate station, we would all have to have our little names. Ideally, not your personal name, nothing to do with Paul or anything like that. So, because what we were doing was pretty illegal, and you could lose all your equipment. You could lose your techniques. You could lose your records. They could, in fact, take your car if your car was involved in, to and fro of illegal rigs that you would put on the roof and stuff like that. So, exactly, back to that, yeah.
But wait a minute. Did you guys have a separate aerial somewhere in like East London? We progressed to
the dizzy heights, technically, of a microwave link, which was so if you could, you had your studio in someone's flat somewhere, and as long as you could see the top of the tower block that you were where your main area was, you could send your microwave link the signal, and it wasn't detectable, so your studio was safe. Because the worry was they would find the aerial and they would follow the cable and they would find out which flat, usually tower blocks of 80, 100 flats or whatever, and it was hard to find which one, and the cable would go disappearing down some some pipe, and by the time you could see, someone would be on the lookout, but it was a bit dangerous, that way you could always possibly lose all your shit. So we got a microwave link, so we could see the top of the tower block, and we knew we were safe. And if they got the aerial, they got the aerial. So we'd be back on in an hour.
But the thing is, since they got
Hey,
that area.
I was about making a record. Sorry, how did I get onto that?
That's all right. No, it's okay. It's okay. So the pirate thing's a big thing. But go ahead.
Yeah, so the pirate thing's a big thing, and so I've been inspired to make that. So under the name Dectician, because that's what I used to call myself on the radio, because I was the one that could scratch, and because I've been practicing on the decks at the club, so I could do all this sort of what everyone else thought was wizardry, on the decks, because I was so used to them. So I thought, right, I don't really want to get my own name involved in this, especially with my dad and the club and everything else. So Dectician, and that was going to be my sort of my call sign, if you like, for the radio. So under the name Dectician, I went up to a studio up in a place called Milton Keynes, about an hour and a half drive north of London, into a studio, put all these samples together, some ideas, some new music, and the B-side was something I could play at trade, which I just started, and the A-side was something I could play on the radio to some of our gigs that we were doing outside. Under the guise of the radio station, which became Touchdown FM. So, but the trade record, the B-side, suddenly I was being, what is this? Can you play this? What is this track? Big piano, big hands in the air piano, high string, chopping it, had a bit of gat decor in there, but it just went. It just, it became a sort of anthem that I used to play at the end of the night. So, lucky, fluked it. Lots of inspiration, all jammed together, and that was it. I got started making music, and but I had to follow that sort of path, the music that I'd made for trade. So it was quite the pace was, the BPM was quite high. It was quite intense, quite energetic, and so I just ran with that style.
Very important. The drug influence into the UK. Not just your club, but just in the club scene. Would you agree that the music had to play into the effect of what the drug was doing because of the speed of it and the energy and the breakdown and all that? How important was that in your production and your DJing?
Well, it was there. It was part of the puzzle, it was... open your box of your puzzle. You've got the right venue, the right DJ, the right music, the right narcotic, ecstasy. Let's say for this case, and there was your picture. There's your perfect picture. So, I suppose the music was coming out of your Chicago's, that style, your Detroit's, but it don't know. It just needed that extra, it just needed that fuse lit, and then out of nowhere came that pill,
right? The blue pill. There you go.
That's right.
With the water.
And freaking it went. I mean, not necessarily it was, the perfect combination, but it certainly helped the music get where it was. And that I can remember people at the club when we had our 2 o'clock license going, look, we want to go later. They're having parties afterwards. Just 2 o'clock wasn't good enough. They needed to keep on going. We want to hear some more music, and we could never,
You can
we
never
could
stop.
never.
You can never fulfill that. You can never. They would keep you. In fact, you still be playing if they allowed you right now, because they just didn't want it to end. The party
Yeah.
to never end.
It was it was new. I suppose when you're a teenager and it's illegal and it's fashionable, and there was some dangers obviously to that side. And being a club owner, it was something we were very conscious of. But as far as that combination and the explosion of the culture, it's almost like it was just waiting there for something to happen, something to get going, and then we'll join in. Maybe before that 87, 88 era, the music just wasn't there. There wasn't a
I
need
know.
for it. I don't
Agreed.
know.
Agreed. No, I know. You guys went and did your own thing. But I want to show you something, because also the later 90s are an important part to you too. And this I want to just mention and show you.
Go.
How important is that to you?
Right, that acetate,
See what I mean, everybody? That's an acetate. Let him explain that.
Yeah, so an acetate, for those who don't know, would be, I suppose, the exchange. So the exchange company would be pressing up records, and if you had a track that you wanted to get out there, you would press up, let's say, 1,000 white labels, and if you were established, the distribution guys would help you out, or if you weren't, and it was a bit of a cheeky sample in there or something a bit, a big sample of its day, you might put them in the back of your car and go around to the record shops and see which ones could take it, because some of them couldn't take it because they were friends of certain labels, and if you had done a version of an illegal one, they couldn't touch it. So but the exchange, that was their business. So if you had a track and you wanted to play it out first and see what the reaction would be like before you're investing in pressing up, you would get what's called an acetate. Basically, a piece of metal. Oh, I know they are. A piece of metal that you would cut your first track on, and they all have a very distinctive smell. Very distinctive smell, as you know. And it's basically a metal plate.
Oh yeah, that's that lacquer that we all know.
And that's the original dub plate. This is a 12-inch. You used to get a 10-inch dub plate for the drum and bass crew or the old hardcore. And you would, now if you had a track, and if you're a train spotter type DJ, you're a big collector, and you've got the only copy of this track in the whole world, and you know that for a fact, that's quite a big thing. And if you're playing that at a show, you only get about 10 plays out of it before it starts to sort of degrade. So you had to choose your battles. So having an acetate of a big track, maybe not yours, but if one of the labels would ring up and say, we've got this new one by Lenny Fontana, and there's 2 copies and you've got one, you're holding on to that, and you can squiggle out, because when the people are looking over, what is that track? You go, you're going to have to wait, but I've got it, So yeah, so that copy there is so I actually done that track for Who's Tunes, Rock the House. And Jerry, he didn't really not sure if it was going to be for him or the label, or there wasn't room for the schedule. And I was going, come on, Jerry, because I really wanted a track on Who's Tunes. It was always a big dream for me to have a record on one of my favourite labels at the time. And it just didn't happen. And then Effective came along. A friend of mine, Darren, was working for them for doing some A&R, and he signed it. And off that track went bang, off on its own journey. And I get asked for it pretty much every weekend.
And that's what I try to tell everybody. Don't give up because somebody says, I'm not sure, I don't know. Because that feeling, you must have been like, oh, I'm playing it out. It's killing the crowd.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. It even happens now. I'll send a track out that I finished that I like, and you send it to certain promotion companies. You know, is this something you could work? Yeah, I don't know if it's me. I'm not sure it's right for the time, and it's, you know, after a while, it can be disheartening. But yeah, I'd like to say, look, if you like it, of course, you've got to learn how to master it, and it's got to sound right, and it's got to, you know, it can't be unfinished. But it's, you learn that by experience, and you learn that by making loads of mistakes, which we've all done, um, me especially. And but you know, you can trust your ears. I trusted my ears to think, look, this is going to work. You know, it's going to work. You can smell it's going to work. And then sometimes it just doesn't. You can't put your finger on it. Why it didn't click? But you know, mate, I've been in the game far too long to be worried about what people say. Oh, you're getting them all at that. That was my first trip or second trip to New York on Virgin Airways. Richard Branson was up there in front of us, and we were having a little drink with him.
See, I love when you say we've been a long time in the game, and I got to show people some of those pictures, and you say,
That's John Nevin, who was working for my friend,
yeah,
and he went on to become, he's a big writer now, written some great books. One in particular called Kill Your Friends, which is a sort of bit about the London Records FFR days back in the 90s. It's a bit like American Psycho. It's a sort of English version of American Psycho. But yeah, that was the old New York, man. That was when it was gunshots going off at the night. Like, what? This place is wild, man. It was early 90s, man. Before Giuliani got his hands on it, it was Wild West times, man. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to guess, but, you know, having a massive hit record, you touch the boxes. The late 90s, you know, you're playing in Ibiza.
Pacha, yeah.
Pacha.
G, is that G there? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, look, this is, you know, now I'm in Disneyland. These are clubs, famous clubs in the
Look how good they're making you look in magazines. You know what I'm saying? They're talking about you. You know, they're telling you about your story at that time.
2000, yeah, shit. Only 24 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what I'm
saying? Oh my goodness, right? That's got to be Ibiza because we're all.
Yeah, you can see everybody sweating.
Very warm. That probably is paradise because it used to get really, really hot in there. I mean, too hot, but it was Ibiza. It's meant to be hot.
And you know, the thing is, can you ever get that back again? That feeling that happened around that time. You think it's ever going to come back that way again to what we remember it? You know what I'm saying? In a good way.
I don't know. And I'm not sure it's meant to, Lenny. You know, there's part of me. I want it to be great. You know, no phones and the atmosphere. But you know, I went to Elgo a few weeks ago in Ibiza. That was rocking, man. You know, that was fucking production. So I don't know, man. It's cycles like you mentioned earlier. It's just the way of the world. New music, new producers, new DJs that come along, and I think as long as we're all on the same page, we're pushing things forward. We're creating. People are making new technologies to make music. People are doing new techniques to play music, and you know, people vote with their feet. If they're not digging it, then they're just gonna, you know, there is a bit of a turning point here in the UK, especially with some of the festivals. That a lot of festivals went down this year, which was, you know, there was almost a bit of a bounce back from where's that? Is that Australia? I think that's in Australia. Yeah. So I mean, that's almost where, you know, the UK was 6 years ago. A bit more of a retro set. You know, they're now reliving that retro sound that we had.
That's
In
my point.
90s, yeah.
That's my point. They want that 90s retro from a lot of us. They want us to go back, take them back to their youths.
Yeah, well, I mean, when, for instance, Clockwork paved the way for that 6-7 years ago with a couple of shows just to see if people would even be interested, and they were queuing around the block, you know, and they've had their lives, they've had children's mortgages, work, whatever, and now I don't know if it's you know, it feels to me, Lenny, I don't know if it feels to you that certain sounds they need to be away from it for 10 years. It just, you know, even with disco, it, you know, everyone was doing disco. Rolling Stones, Queen, they all made David Bowie. They all jumped on the disco, and it just fizzled away, and then it went dormant. And then when it came back, it's like, you know, now it's back.
Right.
It feels like that with some of the house music.
That's,
you know?
how I see it too. The same way. Yeah.
So that 90s era, it disappeared. The music in sort of 2000 onwards, it started to get quite dark, quite techie, quite rolling, you know, and it was a different crowd. I remember thinking, cool, man, you know, not my thing. But the clubs are busy and all good. And then end of 2000s, it started, you know, a couple of just more retro type asking shows. Oh, can you play that track? And now it's you know, it's on fire with that, but it slots in with everything else. You know, there's enough. It seems there's enough room for us all. But yeah, look, I'm lucky and I'm humble that I'm still busy at the weekends doing what I still love to do. Traveling is probably the one thing that gets me a bit more irate than it used to.
Well,
but,
or you can be doing this.
How many more little tricks? See that guy in the red?
Yep.
And the guy on the right, actually, they are superbike dons.
See my point? You could be golfing every day.
This guy is the real deal, and I'm going to remember his name now. I've been put on the spot. His dad used to run the bike in Donington. Oh my God, I'm going to forget his name now. He'll kill me.
Well, I didn't put him on the spot.
He had a really bad limp right that day. He showed me the video of him doing 178 miles an hour. The back brake goes. He's laid the bike down, and he has gone on a journey. Ended up in the barriers and broke his ankle. He was showing me this accident. I was like, mate, you guys, Leon Haslam, his name is.
Thank you so
much. Check
much.
him out. When we put this down, check him out. He's the, you know, he's the Lewis Hamilton of the superbike world. And
the reason why I brought it up was because I love the picture. I said, Paul will be out. If he's not DJing, he's golfing now.
He's golfing. I'm out on the bike. I don't know if you can see, I've got some bike stuff around.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of it, but that's, you know, and that's the thing. We all love our music and we all love to do this job, and we take it very seriously because it's a big part of our lives. But there is also another side to all of us too. It's not just the music. There's more.
Yeah. Well, you know, getting a balance, I suppose, is really important. I don't know, mate. I think I just can't see me not. Hey, someone's at the door. That's my dog Baxter.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So music, I don't know. It's like you, Lenny. It'll be with me. I'll take my records to the grave with me, and I think it's once it's in you, man. You can't turn it off. But DJing as well. It's something. This is what I do. This is what I've got other businesses and and sort of jobs, if you like, that's a bit more day-to-day stuff that it's not for me. I don't really enjoy it. I pay other people to deal with it, and you know, we all started out doing it for nothing. It was a hobby. It was just a love.
Yeah.
And it became I wouldn't even call it a job. I've never called it a job.
No, it became a lifestyle. That's the only way you can look. Yeah. Look, guys, This is what I'm talking about. We're all hanging together, loving each other.
Oh, my man. Oh, Trouble.
Yep.
Big Trouble, man. Look at him there.
May he
Shit.
rest in peace. Yep.
Oh, man. What a dude. And
Grandpa Parky.
He used to do a Sunday at the club before we had the license, the late license, called Trouble's House. And I used to stand there watching the master, Paul Trouble Anderson, playing that music. He had a good core 500 crowd. And for a Sunday night and a school night to get a crowd out till 2 o'clock, it was a big deal. And I used to stand there, just watch, listen.
And he would take the fader, drop it down, and go, "Whose house? Trouble's house." Back in.
After a few weeks, you could see he had a style, and he used to stick to it. And there was a few mixes that he liked to do. Tracks would follow other tracks. Big smoke on, being in of course. Now my dad, no one's supposed to smoke in there. It's illegal.
No, Trouble did.
But he'd be like, "It's trouble, man. It's trouble." And plus, I used to come out of there, and I didn't smoke, and I'd be high as a kite,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
And he gave me a record. Put your hands together. It was a Daryl Pandy. Remember him?
Sure do.
What was his band? It came out in FFRR, and it was Put Your Hands Together, and he had a not a white label but a test pressing, and he was like, "Do you like this?" And I was like, "Mate, what?" And he just went, "It's yours." I'm like, "Oh, I've got it somewhere, man," and it's my gift,
That's how Trouble
treasured prize from a man that I admired so much.
But here's my point. Like, look at all the people like that.
Rampley, man.
You know what I'm saying? Rampley.
Yeah, I used to go and see him at the Milk Bar on a Monday night next to the Astoria in Charing Cross. Again, just listening. Danny Starr he had that Balearic flavour to it. This is just on the sort of back end of the acid house where.
Yeah. Oh wait. And there's the acid house days.
A lot of my photos are like that. You can only see half of me. Tongy, Nick Fanciulli, and Stevie Mac. Yeah. Wow. Shit, man. Wow.
Paul, it's been a pleasure, brother. I mean, let me show everybody this. This is why he's a legend. Look. Paul mixed it in Los Angeles. He took you.
What a night that was. Yeah, look, so much to talk about, Lenny, as you know, but
I need 100 hours with you to keep going.
We'll do a part 2 one day. Yeah, I know you're a busy guy, and but that, yeah, it's a pleasure to talk about what I do and what you do, and you, yeah. See that not touching the deck, so go back to that. See that just touching the fader on the thing, That was probably, I knew the photograph was coming because I look very serious, because I usually used to touch if I had to slow it down, I'd have a little nibble. I know it wasn't the purest way of DJing, but
that's all right. It worked. The mixes were right. They blended right.
Yeah, well, they were.
And even Paul took it to Japan. He took that sound around the world.
Nikki, yeah, that was young. That was my first trip to Yoshi. And my first trip to Tokyo. Yeah. Now that, for those who've been there or know that is a culture difference. That was about as different.
But they loved the music.
They loved it, and they get right. They're when they're fans, man. They take it. Some guy come up to me. I'll never forget this. Outside, and he had a white label of a track that I pressed 500 of, and they flew out. He had one. Can you sign this, please? I said, "How the hell have you got that?"
They found it.
I thought, wow, these are serious fans, man. Yeah.
Mr. Tall Paul, keep
Reach
doing
up,
it.
Your hands.
Yes. Keep doing what you do. Don't ever stop.
My duty, I will.
No stopping that rocking, brother. No stopping that rocking.
Keep in touch, mate, when you're back over, and vice versa. We will see you soon.
He's a trendsetter. Last time I saw him, I was sitting was pre-COVID. I actually ran into him with John Saunderson. You were having a meeting. I ran into you that time. I was sitting.
His little get-togethers. His little
Yeah, I saw you.
Yeah.
Remember, we were sitting together having a drink. That was.
Was that pre-COVID, man?
Yeah.
That. Yeah. In 2 years of just, I just
2 years and probably
out of my,
two more. Probably 2 more before that. It's like 6, 7. I haven't seen you in a long time, but you look great. You're still doing the do. Don't stop that rocking.
You know it.
And people, don't forget, tune in because it's historic every time when we talk to these gentlemen or lady producer DJs that are paved the way for all of us to keep doing what we do. Till next time, everyone. Ta-ta. True House Stories. I'm Lenny Fontana.
Cheers, buddy.
And thank you, Mr. Tall Paul. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, mate.